Okay, Dr. Evans, it's 7 o'clock. Let's get started.
Okay. Well, welcome everyone. I'm excited to be here back with you in week 12. We are on the downhill slope of this semester, as you can see by the number of weeks we have left. And Dr. Stedman, I had some really good work turned in for the task 2. I had a few that I could use as exemplars. And
mine as well, Dr. Revis.
A shout out. I think the most common errors that I saw were most everyone put research into their 5 categories, but sometimes they didn't always match up some of their data collections. So you have to have both. You have to refer to the research and then refer to your data collection instrument results, either your walkthrough or your survey or both. And but overall, I was very pleased with them. The quality of work from my 2 classes has really risen to the level of my expectation. And I do appreciate that.
My sentiments exactly. It's probably, to me, it was a turnaround. It showed me, first of all, every student submitted task 2 on schedule. I didn't have not one not to have it on schedule. And if there were revisions to be made, they were not major revisions, and most of them have already turned that around. And when they turned it around, it truly was, and you're right, I could take several of them and they could become exemplary models for me to use in teaching. I was really, and it probably, Dr. Revis, I'm going to go on and say that as far as the research that was done and the interpretation of the results of that research, the quantitative and the qualitative research that they did for especially, well, for both prompt 1 and prompt 2, it probably was some of the best work that I've had. It was high caliber work. So, you've learned a lot. And I could tell that in this learning curve with this, that the light bulb has come on for most of you or all of you as to your role as an administrator. You spoke and you saw things exactly like a principal should look and see things. So kudos to all of you. I think that you have reached that point that I can already now call you administrators, and you're our future principals and superintendents, and you're going to be a part of that regime. And I think that I don't see any of you that if you put your mind to it, you can do it. You can do it. It's left up to you. It's not an easy, and some of you that are in administration already, that it's not an easy road. It's not an easy task, but you can do it if you want to. But again,
yes. And I want to say thank you for taking this challenge to rise to those expectations.
Exactly.
You've heard Dr. Stedman and I talk about, how important it is to get you to that point, to get into next semester and be able to flow very nicely into the expectations of next semester. And I can totally tell you, after seeing this task, you're going to be fine. You are going to be fine.
And I believe that too, Dr. Revis. And I was thinking about this. I know there's some of you, you probably get so mad with Dr. Revis and me that you could spit at us sometime. But that's okay. I don't care. My job is to push you and to push you and to push you. And, I look at it this way. It's no differently. We take our job very seriously. And, it's no differently than you know, you could be my grandchildren's principal one day. And, you know, I want my grandchildren to be under the best teachers, the best leadership. You know, I want the best. So if I don't push you and expect the best, then, you know, I'm not doing my best. So if you get upset with Dr. Revis and me because we are pushing you and you know, we're okay with that. At the end of the day, I think that you'll come back and you'll say, you think none of it, I don't want anybody to take any of what we do personally. You shouldn't. We, you know, if we keep on pushing you and keep on pushing you, it's because if we didn't see potential and we didn't see that you could do it, then we wouldn't waste our time, you know, doing what we do. So again, it was a great week. And Dr. Revis, let's go ahead and talk about the Zoom, the AAPTEL Zoom sessions.
Well, I'm going to have to defer to you because I got behind in my grading and
Okay.
I have not looked at any of them.
But that's okay, and we can talk about that more next week. But I will say that, you know, we did a little bit of mom and daddy fussing, you know, about the first one, and we said that we expected them to write where they rose to the occasion.
Good.
I was able to look at every one of mine, and I was more than pleased with the quality. The conversations were everything. I mean, if you could really, if you were sitting on the side of the desk that Dr. Revis and I are sitting on, and you could know what we saw in you from the very beginning to where you are now, just 12 weeks later, it's a metamorphosis for many of you. The language, the way you talk, I can actually when I watch your facial expressions. I watch, and not only listen, but I watch your confidence level. It has just grown tremendously. So, you know, again, case AAPTEL 2 session was everything that I wanted it to be and more. And I just want to thank you. And I'm sure, Dr. Revis, you're going to find the same when you get to yours. It was just, and it aligns itself with the work that you did in AAPTEL Task 2. It all aligned itself. Great. The work came in. It was not a struggle this week with the work. You figured out, you have figured out how to work this into your life and to make it work. Just don't backslide when you're not with Dr. Revis and me anymore. You better not backslide and let 603 talk about you and say, because I mean, you're where you need to be. So we don't want you to go backwards. Dr. Revis, would you just do a reminder about case study 2? We won't spend a lot of time on that.
Okay, case study 2. I know you guys like case studies, and I do too. Very authentic scenario that you're going to be looking at. Different from the first one. This is still about a school principal and what she is doing as far as, I think that topic is addressing teacher evaluation. And so, again, what we're looking for in that case study, which is a little bit different than the AAPTEL Task 2 Zoom or Task 1 and 2 Zoom, we're looking for you to talk about the language of the AAPTEL and the APSL, both as well. So we would want to see things in there about teacher leadership, teacher empowerment. Of course, you do have a section on the teacher approaches to evaluation. We want to see you pull in some of that research that you found, and you guys did a really, really good job finding that research in Task 1 and pulling out those salient points and putting it in your Task 2. So be sure you're using some of that research when you talk about what you feel like the principal should have done or could have done in the scenario. Don't just say, I feel like the principal should have done X, Y, and Z. Why do you feel that way? What are you basing your your opinion and your decisions on, backing it up with some of that research. So, same kind of scenario. Want you to make sure that you're giving each one of your team members the opportunity to be the Zoom master, and that if everybody's had an opportunity, then you can start around again, flip a coin, whatever you want to do. I do feel like the better Zoom meetings are the ones in which the Zoom master has planned an agenda. And of course, that Zoom master is responsible for moving that agenda along, making sure that all members of the team get to contribute equally, that no one is dominating the conversation, and those kinds of things. That is tricky in a meeting. Now, I know some of you are very accustomed to facilitating PLCs and those kinds of things, but it is tricky to be polite and cut someone off, or to redirect the discussion back onto the topic. That there's a little bit of manipulation that you have to do there. So be thinking about your strategies if you have to redirect or if you have to move on in the agenda.
And Dr. Revis, I will tell you, in the AAPTEL Zoom sessions, that happened. There was not one group that did not have a planned agenda. The leader came with prepared questions, roles for it was, like I said, it was an amazing turnaround from what it was with the APSL. I mean, have grown by leaps and bounds. So what you're saying, I saw that in the work that
great.
it is.
Well, I can't wait to view your Zoom sessions. And again, I apologize. I thought it was more important for me to get feedback to you on your APTEL Task 2. And I've just been struggling with some health issues this past week. So I will get to that just ASAP, and I look forward to it. You've whetted my appetite, Dr. Stedman.
Yeah, well, I think you're in for some good for some good stuff. Just a reminder, and this we'll talk about this week 15. I think it's week 15 that we have our town hall, and Dr. Revis and I will begin talking to you somewhat about it week 14. But Dr. Lamb will introduce it week 15. 603 is embedded with case studies. I mean, it's dealing with it's law and finance. 603 is all about law and finance, school law and finance. So it is you will spend a lot of time with your Zoom teams working, and they'll be much more comprehensive than that. We've just kind of basically introduced you to the concept of the case studies. But that will be a large part of what you do in 603. There are many case studies, but it ties into, I mean, there's a lot of research that you have to do because, what does the law say? So I'm just saying, this gets you started. So do a good job with this so I can go ahead and brag. We can brag to Dr. Lamb and that 603 staff on how well you do case study 2 and get you ready. Dr. Revis, I will say that I have had several students to clear task 3 already. I have
my goodness.
I have had one student to clear task 4 already. So let's just talk about task 3 just as a review. And let's see if there are any questions before we go on. So if you would just lead the discussion on that, Dr. Revis. Do I need to pull up anything, or do you think we just need to talk about it?
Can you find the template? Let's look at the template.
I can. Yes, I can. Let me bring this down.
All right. So task 3 is like your culminating task for the APTEL. And that is where you are pulling together your PLC. You're sharing your data from your walkthrough and survey. And of course, you're identifying those gaps. And hopefully at the end of task 2, you wrote a summary section identifying the gaps from your task 2. So you see, scroll them down just a little bit more, Dr. Stedman, and let's look at the graphic organizer. I always encourage you to start with the graphic organizer first. And it's the same graphic organizer that you use in the APSL. And you just go through with your team and you're identifying specific activities. Now, this growth plan is about teacher empowerment and leadership. Teacher empowerment and leadership. So you're going to reflect back on the data that you collected from your survey in those 5 categories and from your walkthrough. And you're going to identify activities with your PLC to close the gaps. Closing the gaps. I would expect to see well, you have to see the connection between the gaps you identified at the end of task 2 and the activities that you're identifying here in task 3. Okay. Excuse me. Now, I always like for you to start writing from this graphic organizer. Once you do that, then you have the same 10 sections that you have to talk about in your narrative that we talked about in the APTEL. Dr. Stedman, can we now go to the helpful hints document?
Yes, ma'am. Let me scroll down.
Okay.
Okay, you want the 3, right?
Yeah, right. Okay, right. Let's go on down. Let's see. Yeah, that's task 2.
Here we are.
Here we are. Now, the growth plan, at the end of the task 3, you are going to do a presentation to your school administration. So when you do that presentation, remember that you're going to go back and pull in from task 1, report of best practices.
This is what right here.
Yes, this is what the research says about teacher building efficacy, all those 5 topics. This is what the research says about professional development. Now, you don't have to restate all your research, restate the most salient points. And then you are going to give a visual checklist. And that is typically reporting out your data, a summary of your data. This is what the survey said. And this is what we found on the walkthrough. Here are our gaps. And here is our growth plan.
Dr. Revis, this is almost like an outline to follow.
Yes,
for your presentation.
Exactly.
That's what you're looking at. This is if you do exactly this and then you show it and you follow this, you've got everything that you need.
You've already done all the work for this, except for the growth plan for the presentation. Okay.
And I'm going to show them something, Dr. Revis, I'm going to show them something in a minute too. But I said it's highly recommended. But I went back and I looked at the what the evaluators are going to look at. They are going to look at a recorded presentation for it to be considered accomplished work.
Okay.
So that's a part of what they look for.
Okay. All right. So you heard that. So you do need to record that presentation. And again, right there's your checklist of things you need to have in there. Okay. Your narrative work. There are 10 headings. In this order, you are to write about these things. Now, when you get to the first topic, a vision for positive school environment, I want to see some research there. I just don't want something you pulled off the top of your head. You need to cite some research there. Then the rest of this, you are just talking from what you have put in your action plan. You're narratively describing your action plan. I don't want to see for short-term, long-term goals and activities, I don't want to see in your narrative, see graphic organizer. No, you talk about them. You discuss them. You're bringing life to that graphic organizer. Just like you did, guys, for the APTEL. Okay? Anything else there, Dr. Stedman?
No, I think before we move on, do any of you have any questions of Dr. Revis and me at this time as you're moving in? Because most of them are at a place to their own task 3 already. Racine has her hand raised. Racine?
Dr. Stedman, my audio cut out when you mentioned what the evaluators are looking for as far as that presentation.
They're looking for you a recorded presentation.
And so I know last week you mentioned how to put that into Taskstream, so I'm just trying to confirm the best way to include
all
that.
You've got to do, remember you put your PowerPoint in there, the frames from your PowerPoint, but then you just put the link of the recording, just like
you
doing
did your Zoom session.
With your Zoom sessions. Just put that link in there, and that gives the evaluator the option to go in there and look at that if they choose to. And remember, we said that would be a great artifact anyway when you're doing your competency folio. So just put the link in there of the recording. You do a recording and you upload it as a YouTube video, Racine.
Okay, that makes sense with the YouTube. Thank you so much.
Okay, make a YouTube video out of it. That's all you've got to do, and you'll have a link. Okay, Solomon.
Yes, for the gap analysis that we're conducting, are we doing one for each of the gaps that we identified from the survey, or are we trying to get the most beneficial ones that will have the most impact?
It could be both. If there are too many gaps, you've got to put a plan together that could that you could practically work with.
I would say, Dr. Stedman, I would say you need to. I would just say you need to identify all gaps.
Yes, I would too. Yeah.
Now, whether you address all the gaps in your action plan may be a different thing.
Yeah,
but if you don't address them, you need to say why you didn't, because you prioritized them. Okay. One of the hallmarks of a failing school is they try to do too many things at the same time. So it needs to have how many strategies at least? I like to see at least 4 strategies. What do you think, Dr. Stedman?
Yeah, I would too. But you know what, Dr. Revis, in thinking about that, in the action plan, they actually have an opportunity to address all of them. And some of them can be short-term, middle-term, and long-term in how you deal with them. The ones that you may not be able to get to all of them right now, but Solomon, I probably, if the need's there, it needs to be addressed. You may not can just address them all that first year. It may be something you deal with the most prevalent to begin with, and then you work towards the others, because it wouldn't, if the gap's there, that means there's a need there.
Gotcha. Okay, thank you.
Okay, Dr. Revis, does that sound right?
I agree. Yes.
Okay, Latasha.
Yes, sir. So I just want to, I'm piggybacking off, I can't remember the young lady name, but basically we can use our Zoom meeting that we just had for an artifact in our competency portfolio, correct?
You could use that, but we're saying that the Zoom link from your presentation for this action plan is what I was referring to.
Oh, okay. Okay, got you.
I mean, that's just an example of an artifact that can be used. And this is pretty open-ended, wouldn't you say, Dr. Revis? That presentation? Yes. So that's a prime example of how you can take an artifact and use it for open-endedness. Because you're presenting, not only are you presenting to your administration, this is an opportunity to present to the entire staff about the needs as well, if they allow you. Okay, does that help?
Yes, sir.
Okay, Jeffrey.
Good evening. I don't know if you've gone over the dates yet for this, due dates, but I was going to ask about the due dates, because this week is a short week, because we're out to after tomorrow, that's it. we're out Thursday and we're out Friday. So I didn't know if I was getting ahead of the game, ahead of you, but I wanted to know about that.
Okay, your action plan is the draft of your action plan is due this coming Sunday. So you can still work on your draft. You may not be able to present it until next week. We talked about that last week. You may not be able to present it, but that the presentation can come. You just put some type of statement in there to Dr. Revis and me, letting us know that your presentation is planned for next week. And then when you resubmit it, you would resubmit it with the presentation for us to approve before you put it in for final grade.
Oh,
Yeah,
right.
you would want to do all of your narrative work, your action plan, everything except for your presentation. I know a lot of school systems are taking off Thursday for Veterans Day, and some are also taking off Friday. That's what we talked about last week, and trying to get you to prepare to have your PLC meeting at the beginning of this week. Okay.
And letting us look at it and getting feedback from your peers before you actually present is really a good thing for you, because you want to make sure that you've got everything just like it needs to be before you go before your administration anyway.
Sounds good. Thank you.
Okay, you're welcome. Okay, have we addressed all questions about this so far?
I think we have one more, Jennifer.
Hey,
Okay.
Dr. Revis, thank you.
Hey.
I hope you're feeling all right, by the way.
Thank you.
So I do have a meeting scheduled with my principal tomorrow, and I put together a Google Slides presentation of all of my data and my figures. And basically it was a summary of what I did, then the different categories that I looked for, the graphs that represent the findings, and what I found at the end. And I had three I had three needs that I established based on my walkthroughs and survey data. So I put that together to meet with her tomorrow, because she wanted to, we don't have school Thursday or Friday either. And so she wanted to meet tomorrow. So I planned on recording that initial presentation and then writing my plan up and then presenting my action plan to her after the fact. So what I was thinking, could I go ahead with that, submit that as part of my task 3 to you, and then also just indicate that I will have another meeting, and it very well may be through Zoom Friday. We might be able to plan that depending on how far I get with my writing. But would that work? Would that suffice?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay,
Sounds
excellent.
like a good plan.
Okay,
Yeah.
thank you so much.
Yeah.
Just be sure you write it all up in your narrative, and then you'll go back and fix it when you finalize that presentation and that plan.
And again, don't anybody stress over the presentation. Stress.
You're muted, Dr. Stedman.
Okay, I don't know what happened. Can you hear me now?
Yes.
I don't know what happened. But anyway, don't stress over the presentation at this point as much as getting your plan together and getting ready for the presentation. And then, as we said, we realize that it's a short week, and that gives you, next week to get your presentation in. We're at a place that we can give you a little bit of time to get your presentation together on that. So, and it, as long as we see that you are where you need to be with the narrative work by this Sunday, the presentation we can work, because we know that everybody's having to fit that in. And it's such an important part of the AAPTEL that Dr. Revis and I are not going to push it. You've got to get it done, but we know that you've got to work around administrative time to be able to get it done well. Okay.
Okay, so let me reemphasize. We're not telling you that you don't have to turn in task 3 come Sunday evening. You do have to turn in your first draft, and you should have all your narrative work done, these headings fleshed out, your action plan done. And if you don't have your presentation finalized until the following week, we get that. Okay.
And we may, you know, you may get, when you turn it in, it may be perfect work. And we may say, we may send it back and we may put a 90 on it and we'll say, this is perfect work. And when you resubmit it with your presentation, then your grade will be adjusted accordingly, you know, based on that. That kind of holds you hostage a little bit until you get it back into us. So, okay. Michelle.
When we resubmit with the presentation, where exactly do we put that in task 3? Do we talk about it at the beginning and then put the presentation in the appendices?
You can put it, I would put it at the end of, after you do your the graphic
Actually,
organizer. I would go underneath that and I would do a narrative, whatever. I would actually, Michelle, if it were me, I would talk about, that gives you an opportunity to actually reflect on the presentation and then to put your video presentation link there as well. But you know, it doesn't have to be a long narrative, but it will give you an opportunity to reflect. You may even want to talk about, you know, my administration said blah 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 blah. You know, how did they react to it? Do you think that it's something that they're going to do they plan to let you implement it beginning in January, or is it something that they said that you'll have to wait until next year to do? You know, those kinds of things. You know, just reflect on, based on how the experience goes, good, bad, or ugly. You can talk to us about it. Okay.
Thank you.
All you can do, remember, is we hope that all your administration are going to love it so much that they can't wait for you to present it. If they choose not to, you've done your job. Okay. So you don't feel badly or you don't feel guilty about it if it doesn't go any further than this. We hope that it will, but you will have learned from it and you will have done what you need to do. Okay.
And for those in my class, I like to see the narrative first, then the graphic organizer, and then your presentation, just like Dr. Stebbin talked about, right after the graphic organizer.
Right. Right. Okay, any more questions? Solomon, do you have another question?
I didn't, sorry.
Okay, that's okay. That's okay. I'm going to stop this, Dr. Revis, and I'm going to come back to, let me see. I'm going to come back to the helpful hints. That's what I want. Okay, or maybe that's where I was. No, that's not where I want to go. That's where I was. Let me go back to the template. That's where I want to go. Let's go ahead and talk about task 4. Task 4 is it's not a hard task. It's not a long task, but it's a very, very important task. You did this. This is the same thing that you did in the APTEL for task 5, and that's where you reflected on 12 of the competencies there. 8 of them were required, and you chose 4 others out of the 21. Well, that means if you've done 12, that means there are 9 left. Here are the 21. You've got to decide which of the 21 have not been done. So there's 9 of them. That all of you, and it's going to be different for everybody because, you know, everybody chose, you know, differently with the 4 that they had to choose from. So it's going to vary amongst you. Now, the thing that you've got to remember, and this is where some of you, your scores, you could have had a 4 had you focused on task 5 in the APTEL a little more, put more detail in there. They're asking for 2 things. You're reflecting, but you're reflecting on 2 things. And I would, in my narrative work, if it's communication, and most of you, it won't be communication because that was done in the APTEL, but if it was communication, I would make sure that when Dr. Revis and I looked at it, and especially your evaluator, that it distinctly talks about your your work, your coursework, the evidence work that you've done with the APTEL and the APSL. And then you've got to also reflect on communication in your clinical experience. So there should be, don't make sure that when you talk about it, that it's clear that when you talk about that competency, that is clear to Dr. Revis and me, and especially to your evaluator, that they know that you've addressed both your work-related experience with Blackboard and the work that you've done there, and you're talking about your clinical experience as well. It should have two parts to it. Two parts to it.
Thank you, Dr. Stedman.
It must have two parts to it. And if you don't, I know for a fact they're going to say that, and they're going to say, while you did a good job on task 4, you did not address both this and this. That's exactly what was said before. So do not let that happen. Okay?
Guys, this is a real easy one for you.
Oh,
you
it is.
Say that again.
Sure.
Okay.
What are the two things?
Go ahead, Dr. Revis.
I said this one, it should be an easy one for you because you're just reflecting on your work from the course or your clinical work. Okay?
It's not either or, it's both.
Both.
Okay. Are there any questions about task 4? Any questions at all? And I did that because many of you are you're really at that place where you can begin addressing task 4, and you know what to do after that. You know that you start putting it together as one document, just like you did the APSL. You know that you have to submit it to Dr. Revis and me for our review. You know, we have to say that it's ready to go to the Turnitin process, and you know, after that, we tell you when it's ready to go to Taskstream for a final evaluation. Now listen, do not rush the process. Keep up, but don't get so fast thinking, I want to finish this, that you end up messing up because you get ahead of yourself and you begin rushing. You've got to keep up, and we want things on time, but don't think that it's not a race to see who can finish first. Okay, I want it right, and I want you to be able to do well. And I don't want one little thing to be in there that's going to, that one little thing could be the one thing that keeps you from being able to get an accomplished document. And you've worked hard, and I want you, and we want you to be able to get an accomplished document if at all possible. So, I mean, we can't determine that. We can only guide you so far, and we can think, you know, but, you know, at the end of the day, you know, the evaluator has the final say so on this, but we're going to guide you the best we can on that. Let's look at, let's go ahead and look at Taskstream requirements. You've already been there because that is where you addressed those 12 competencies for the APSL. We still have a few people that have not finished that, and you know who you are, so you know you need to take care of that responsibility. As soon as you get task 4 over with, you've got to get task 4 over with, you've got to get it approved. Once that's done, then you can immediately finish out the last 9 competencies for completing your competency folio. And that's something that you can begin working towards clearing after the APTEL Task 4 has been cleared. Okay? In Taskstream, some of you have addressed this already, but there's several that have not. You can go into Taskstream. Your School of Ed dispositions must be completed, and this is, you have to submit this for evaluation. You don't have to do any writing there. There are radio bullets there. All you do is click on what it's a self-evaluation. Now, if you think that you're doing better than average, then what is that word, Dr. Revis? If it is, I'm just saying they have the option. I've lost my train of thought. What is the word if you?
I think it's called is it accomplished?
No.
No, that's our rubric for the evidences.
Is it distinguished?
Distinguished. Thank you,
Yeah.
thank you. I had a senior moment. But if you consider yourself to be distinguished, then what you have to do, you have to do narrative work. You have to justify why you feel that you're distinguished. We're not telling you that you're not, but you have to justify it. But if you just put that that everything's just normal in that area, then there's not anything else that you have to do.
I think actually the rubric on that is meets, does not meets, or exceeds.
Exceeds expectations.
Yeah.
That's it,
Yeah.
Dr. Revis. Thank you. Same thing is accomplished though, but
Right,
thank you for
right.
that. But exceeds, that's it. Exceeds expectations. If you say that you meet expectations, then you're fine. You don't have to do anything else, but just click the bullet and submit for evaluation. If you say that you exceed expectations, then you have to prove to us why you say that. And again, we're not discouraging you from doing that, but you just, if it's not there, we send it back and you have to start all over again with it. Okay. That can be done now. You don't have to wait any longer on the School of Ed dispositions. You can go in and you can complete that now. And it takes about 10, 15 minutes at the most. It's not a hard process. Then there's your competency analysis. Now, don't get that confused with the competency folio. It's a competency analysis. There is no writing that you have to do there because you have already done that with your competency folio and with task 5 of the APTEL and task 4 of the APTEL. You've already done all the narrative work that needs to be done. All you're doing there with the competency analysis, again, is a self-analysis, and you're hitting the bullets there as well. And then you will submit that for an evaluation. The competency folio is for comments only. Only for comments. School of Ed dispositions, evaluation. Competency analysis, evaluation. And then the last thing that you need to begin working towards making sure that this is organized, and don't wait until the last minute to pull this together. You should be organizing your internship log on the GWU form. And again, it should show a minimum of 80 hours of a variety of administrative experiences. What you would do is you will list the date, you will list the activity, and you will list the number of hours accomplished for that, if it's 1 hour, 2 hours. And then once you get through, you make sure that you add all of those hours up and show if it's 80 hours, if it's 85 hours, if it's 120 hours, make sure that you add those up at the end. Your principal must sign off on it, and they must date that they are validating that you indeed did what you said that you did for this semester. Okay.
And
we'll
Dr.
talk
Stebbin,
about- go ahead.
let me just reiterate, those are the two things I have to send it back for the most. You've not totaled your hours, or you've not gotten your internship supervisor's signature. So be sure both of those are done when you submit that to, and be sure you're submitting it to your competency folio, not task stream, competency folio.
Right. And we'll talk about that. We'll talk about that each week now until we're finished as a reminder. This, you can find this under week 12 in Blackboard. This agenda's there. but these are the important dates to remember at this point. Task 2 of the APTEL is due to Blackboard for final instructor grade no later than this Sunday, November 14th by 9:00 p.m. And many of you have already done that. You don't have to wait until then. Go ahead and get it in there. Task 3 of the APTEL, as we've already said, is due to Blackboard for peer and instructor review by this Sunday as well by 9:00. If you've completed your presentation, go ahead and put it in there. But if you haven't, don't worry about it. We will allow that to be done next week. And you'll work with us with that. We'll work with you with that. Your task 3 of the APTEL peer reviews will be completed no later than Tuesday of next week before what would be our class, and I'll talk about that. Your case study 2 is this coming Sunday. We encourage you to use this coming Thursday if you haven't already done it. Dr. Evans, I've got a team that has already, they completed it last week. Did a phenomenal job with that as well. So your case study 2 is due by this week. We would encourage you to use your Thursday because we're not coming online on Thursday. So, you know, that's a time that was originally planned anyway. So use it to get this done. And if you've already done it, then use that time, you know, to get some other work done. Again, we will not be coming online Thursday for coaching session. Use your time wisely. Now look at the last thing in the purple, whatever you want to call it. There will not be a scheduled Zoom meeting next Tuesday, November 16th. We're giving you time to work independently, in groups, whatever you need to do, you can do that. However, Dr. Revis and I are going to Zoom in at the same time. And what you can do, we're going to call it office hours. You can Zoom in, you can ask us a question, and you can Zoom out. We'll be here until we don't have students anymore, but this is a time that you can Zoom in at that point and say, you know, this is, write your questions down and use that time wisely to Zoom in with us and Zoom out with whatever you need next Thursday. Dr. Revis, any comments about that?
Right, just use your time wisely. You do have quite a bit to do to finish up, but you can see the light at the end of the tunnel, I think. And just pace yourself and use your time wisely.
Okay.
And as always, if you have any questions, let us know.
Again, I can't say how proud I am of the work that has been done this past week. Very proud of all of you. Okay.
Excuse me, Dr. Stern. Yes. With my School of Ed dispositions, I think because I had Taskstream prior to this semester, it's still stating that it's for 2018. So I'm not exactly sure if that's what I should be filling out.
Who is speaking? I'm sorry, I can't.
McDuffie, Tanya.
Okay. Tanya, just yes. we'll talk about that, okay?
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Tanya, you may have to call me, but I'll check into that. You said, do you know when that year was?
2018.
2018. Okay.
Yes.
Let me investigate that. I may have to talk to Dr. Lamb about that, but we'll figure it out, okay?
Okay, thank you. Good night. Good evening.
Okay. Any other questions?
I'm so confused on this competency analysis. Where I'm looking at analysis in Taskstream, I finally found it. But what exactly are we supposed to be putting in there? Because it does have some questions and asking us if we meet or.
Okay, you read all those questions, and if you and most of you are going to meet them. I mean, I'm going to just be honest with you. Most of you at this point, you should say I've met them. Okay. Now, if you see that there's an area that you feel like that, and once in a while somebody says I need help in this area, and they're very honest about it, and that's okay too. We're none perfect in everything, but don't make it hard. All you're doing is saying yes. I feel that I'm very comfortable to say that I am competent in all these areas, and that, you know, then and just click it off at that and move on. Don't make it a hard Don't make it anything hard. You don't have to do any writing there at all.
It's just a self-assessment. Don't
So there's
belabor.
nothing we have to upload. We just answer the questions.
You answer the questions, and then when you get through at the end, you will submit it for evaluation in Taskstream.
Okay, thank you. I was reading it wrong. Thank you.
Okay,
Dr.
Kanisha.
Stedman, I was too, and I think Lauren helped me figure it out, so I'm good.
Tanya.
Thank you.
Okay, good. Okay, good. Again, it's not hard, so y'all don't make it hard, okay?
Any other questions?
Any other questions?
I have one. Are we sending that competency analysis to you, Dr. Revis? I'm in your class, or is it going to Dr. Stedman for the, I guess, the intern?
You still sending everything in Taskstream to me, Racine. That goes to me for evaluation.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. And then my students in my 2 classes, it goes to Dr. Revis for evaluation. Okay. Any other questions? Y'all, we have accomplished a lot tonight. Covered a lot.
Sure have. And you've got a lot to do, but you are experienced now. You know what to do. There's nothing from here on out that you haven't done. Just think about it that way. Okay.
Dr. Revis, I honestly, and I'm thinking back over the 9 years that I've been doing this. All of a sudden, I probably have seen the biggest transformation with this group than I've seen with any group that I've had. And it's just like all of a sudden the butterfly came out of the cocoon. That's how I feel this week was.
Yeah, I agree. I've seen a lot of growth. And you know, the sad thing is Dr. Stedman and I may end up back with working with you in this summer in 605, but you're going to be ready. You've got this, guys. You've got this. The thing about your next semester is that you have a lot more content to do, not just your evidence work, but a lot of content. Now, the content you will love. You will love school law. In fact, you're going to be sitting in that class, you're going to be thinking, oh my goodness, I should have had this class before I stepped in the classroom. But you will love school law and finance, but there will be a lot more content. You're going to have to work more independently on your artifact evidence work, okay? But you've got it now. You know the process. You understand how to unpack that rubric, and you're going to be fine.
Oh, I know what I wanted to show them before they go out. I'm sorry. I said I was going to do it and I forgot it because it's important. And you've got this in your Blackboard, in Blackboard. Let me see. Where is it? Here it is. There it is. Let me hide this. Okay, just remember, this is in Blackboard. You need to go for each of your tasks. Now, most of you are at task 3. Again, this is where I was talking about to get accomplished. This is what the evaluator is going to look at. The candidate works with others to create and video record a presentation addressing prioritized needs developed in the prompt for task 3. Again, it's there, so make sure that you do it. And this is everything that you need to do to be able to be considered for accomplished work. And notice it says and this is where all of the multiple uses of digital tools and technology and everything else is included as well. And then I wanted to go to task 4. Narrative extensively analyzes aspects of course content and clinical experiences that contribute to the development of 9 competencies. So just make sure that you look at that and that you have checked it off. Yes, I've done that. I feel comfortable that I've done that. That's a checkpoint for you. Okay. Dr. Revis, that's it. I don't have anything else. Does anybody else have any other questions? Tiffany, do you have a question?
I did. I know previously when Dr. Lamb had talked to us about our internship logs, about he kept stressing the supervision and bus duty and not doing that. But so my principal has put me in charge of like our after school tutoring program. So I am doing that on a daily basis. So am I allowed to include that multiple times as far as like what I'm doing every day with that, or
you
I wasn't
can't?
sure.
No, that is an experience, and some of that time can be used, but you can't say that, you can't say like 20 hours of my time is because I am in charge of after school. You would work with Dr. Revis, and she would say that based on what you share with her, she may say, out of your 80 hours, Tiffany, I can give you 5 hours credit for that.
Okay.
Or 10 hours credit. I'm just using that as an example, but we can't let it all be so heavy. Now listen, in that experience, in that after school experience, you can break it down so that you've got lots of different experiences in there, okay? Don't just say that. Look at everything that you do administratively and look at maybe breaking it down. And if you do that, then you can look over a period of, let's say over a period of a month. If you're working in the afternoon 4 days a week over a period of a month, then you can look at the different things that you do over a period of a month, and you'll be able to use all of those experiences. Does that make sense?
I think so, yes. That's why I wanted to clarify, because so like I'm doing the scheduling, I'm communicating with parents, I'm communicating with the teachers, the tutors that are paying to do it. I'm monitoring the timesheets and tracking the hours of the tutors that we're paying. So
yeah, I think you've got a lot of good stuff in there, yes. And you'll be able to count a lot of it, but we just don't want to say after school work. You've got to be able to be specific with it, okay?
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. Latasha?
Yes, sir. Actually, I'm trying to figure out how would we count the hours or calculate the hours? I'm in like 3 to 4 different programs. It's got me doing all these different types of duties, such as after school detention, running that. I'm the PTO liaison. They just get me all over the place. They're really using me right now.
Well,
so how would
you use them all, and then you can get some credit for all of them, but you can't get all credit for any of them, okay?
Okay.
Does that make sense? You can get some credit for all of them, but you can't get all credit for any of them. I like that, Dr. Revis.
I do too. And be very specific about the specific task you're doing. Don't just say supervise attention for 5 hours. You need to be very specific about what you're doing within those tasks.
And make sure that you show that it is as not as a teacher, but as an administrator that you're doing this. It must reflect administrative responsibilities, not teacher responsibilities.
Okay. Yes, sir. And can I use as artifacts when the principal email out the description, can I use that as a artifact? She telling me my duty as an administrator?
Yes. I would say, I say yes, and then Dr. Revis may have to look at that and, validate it, but I would say, yes, I think you're on to something there.
Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome. Okay,
now
remember,
for your clinical hours, you don't have to have artifacts attached to your log.
Right.
The artifacts would go into your competency folio as open-ended. Okay. Just wanted to make sure, Latasha, on that you don't think you have to have artifacts for everything you do for your clinical hours.
For your clinical hours, all you do, you put the date, you put the activity, and be specific with the activity, and you put the amount of time, if it's 1 hour or 2 hours or whatever that you have given to that. And then your principal is going to come back and sign and date it saying, yes, I confer that this did happen.
Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome. Okay, guys.
Hope you
will
have a good
begin.
evening.
And communicate with us if you need us. We will be online next Tuesday. And if you need us, you again, Zoom in and Zoom out. We'll call it office hours, okay?
Good
Good
night.
night, everybody.
Dr. Stedman, can I ask you a question once everybody
Sure.
gets off?
Yeah, go ahead.
It has to do with my hours.
Okay, go ahead.
So we had a teacher that left our school completely. And so I had to take over, we use Canvas for our LMS, and when they left, all of their stuff kind of wiped out and had to go. So I had to make a virtual class for the teacher, well, not for the teacher, but for the students that would be there. Because we didn't literally have a body there to teach them. So I had to create a whole new course for them. And my administrative team gave that task to me. I had to make them for two other teachers as well. None of them are content that I actually teach. So it's not necessarily me as a teacher doing it, but I had to do all the behind the scenes, load all the kids, load all the assignments, get all the Power School passbacks and all of that stuff. So collectively, it's probably been about 10 hours over the month of October that I took to do all of that. I was just wondering how much of that can I use for my hours?
I would say about 5 of those 10 hours.
About 5 of them, okay.
About 5 of them, because we want you to have a variety. Now, if in those 10 hours, you can be creative, and you can show a lot of administrative, looking at those 21 competencies, you can pull out any of those competencies and say, this is what I've done with that, and you can prove it, then you might can get the 10 hours. But I'm just saying, just for the experience, it would be about 5 hours.
Okay.
Does that make sense? And again, that's something that you would probably, well, you can shoot it to me or Dr. Revis, since she's the one that's great. Dr. Revis would be glad to talk with you about that, or to look at what you've got.
Okay.
Okay.
Right,
Sounds like a great experience, though.
It has made me pull my hair out because I've been on the phone with Canvas Help Desk and Power School Help Desk, probably more than I have ever cared to be online and talking to them.
Well, the good thing about what you just said is I have to figure something else because I can't pull my hair out.
Well, the hard part is, though, because I don't have, I guess, administrative rights because I'm not a licensed administrator,
Right.
having
that
to
makes it hard,
get with somebody else and log in their stuff and then go and do all that's, I guess, been the harder part is to having to do it on their end. They're like, no, you need the experiment. AKA, we don't want to do it. So here you go, you do it.
But anyway, but if you have anything specific about that and you need to talk with me about it, just give me a call, okay?
Okay, thank you.
Okay, Solomon, you said you had a question.
Yes, and this is just regarding the gap analysis.
Okay.
So I'm still trying to make sure that I understand fully exactly what I'm doing right on this piece. So when I'm looking at the information that I put into task 2, where we talked about the different pieces, such as like recruitment, placement, and all of those different areas. From there is kind of where I did the leadership survey, and then I went and reviewed the data from there. So the gaps come from the survey or from the data that I talked about, or the correlation of the data to those different sections. Such as like when we talked about in the section where it talked about the empowerment and building efficacy among teachers. One gap that I noticed was that the staff didn't feel that the administration provided feedback. So that would be considered a gap for that gap analysis, correct?
Yes.
Okay, and then,
And everything you said is yes, yes, yes. It's a combination of the gap analysis can come from any of that stuff that you've done.
okay, and then with those gaps that I find, I'm researching the research-based strategies of how to close those gaps.
How you gonna fix the problem? Yeah.
Okay,
And that's what's going to go into that action plan for staff development for the teachers to try. These are things that we're going to do based on what we said that's going to match up with the problem. You know, these are the activities and things that we're going to do and the different things that's going to match up with the identified needs that you found.
okay, and then my last piece. So we also, one of the other gaps that I had was about teachers being involved in like the hiring process of new teachers. And I mean, my suggestion would be that they provide like they create a new hire like team or whatever. However, that's not, I haven't really researched to know if that's the best strategy. That's just kind of what common sense says.
Well, and some of the things will be that you will not have quote research on every little thing, but you do on most of it. But I will tell you, some people have already used that strategy. So yes, that works.
Okay, I just wanted to make sure that I wasn't supposed to have like concrete, like cited evidence for each of these strategies that I'm thinking of. Okay.
Well, you do have it because you talked about it already in
right.
And I mean, you do kind of sort of have it already. So
okay, but as far as inside the little chart, the graphic organizer, I'm not citing that this evidence, this strategy comes from this.
No, but when you make your presentation, you can say that's when you talk about the research, and you can say, you know, this is one of my this is a strategy for improvement, and I'm basing this basing this strategy on the fact that research says.
Gotcha. Okay, perfect.
Okay, and that's a part of your presentation. Okay.
Okay, thank you.
You are welcome, Lauren.
Hey, Dr. Stedman, I was just, I know we're not turning in the internship log right now. I just wanted, I couldn't remember what y'all said. Do we turn it into you first in Blackboard for review, or we just put it in the competency folio and then Dr. Revis will give us feedback?
Yeah, you'll submit it for comments. Is what you'll do in the competency folio. Yeah, it's down at the very bottom. You'll see it down at the very bottom of that folio, and you'll just, when you put it in there, you'll put your logs in there, and then you'll request comments, and you'll put Dr. Revis's name in there to give you the feedback on that.
Okay, I know we're not ready for that. I just want to make sure I had it straight in my mind.
But you're moving fast along, so you'll be there before you know it because of where you are.
Okay, well, I'm trying to get extra hours in case she doesn't like some of it.
Okay, but that's smart.
Okay, thank you.
That's smart. You're welcome. Okay, Jeffrey, I see Jeffrey and somebody. Anybody else have another question? Anybody else?